Hey, what's up guys? Jerome here from the Bonsai Supply, and I have here with me a Dwarf Jade forest, or also known as Portulacaria afra. Now, if you love jades as much as I do, you know that they easily propagate from cuttings. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do here today in this video. I'm going to take this forest that I have here with me today, I'm going to trim it back and take the cuttings from it to create a new forest. And so I'm going to show you step by step how I go about trimming this one and how I'm going to go about propagating the cuttings to create a new forest. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So this forest might look a little overgrown right now, and that's on purpose because when you let your jades overgrow like this and they start to sway in the wind, these whips, you see how the entire tree starts to move and sway in the wind as well. And that's really good because now the trunk has to thicken up to support all of this weight on top here. So I'm actually hitting two birds with one stone by letting them explode and grow out like that. So number one, I'm thickening the current trunk, but also the cuttings that I'm going to take right now are much thicker as well. So my forest that I'm going to create, I'm going to have much bigger cuttings to work with. And the reason why I'm doing it right now in the middle of the summer is because it's the perfect time. The jade is actively growing, as you can see, but also the cuttings will recover and take root much faster. So I will see new growth once I take the cuttings in just a few short weeks. And so now the first step is to go ahead and trim this forest back and save, of course, all of these cuttings. Alright, so as I go ahead now, I'm just going to go ahead and trim this tree back. It is way overgrown and it is starting to get very heavy. But of course, I'm going to keep these cuttings on the side here. And what's really cool is that from just this one forest here, I can make unlimited new trees. And so the best way to do when I trim it back for the first time is actually to cut back to 2 leaves. So as you see here, I'm just leaving 2 leaves behind when I trim this tree back all the way around. Alright, so here's a quick tip that when you trim your jades, make sure that you have really sharp scissors because when you cut it, you don't want to make any tears, you just want to make clean cuts. Now once you have made your cuts, you actually never have to use cut paste on a jade because the cuts that you make, they will dry up and then heal over on their own. If you use cut paste, you're actually not helping the healing along, you're actually making it worse. You could introduce some rot by using cut paste or even an insect infestation. So that makes it really easy to take care of a jade because you're just trimming and you don't have to do anything after that. So as you can see, I cut this forest back a lot, and that's for a good reason because I want to keep it about this size, and I think the trunks are at a good thickness, so now I can just continue to develop this forest and let it fill in and thicken. So I won't let it grow out as much anymore as I did this time. I will now keep it more compact. But as you can see, look at all of these cuttings that I got from just this forest. So now we can go ahead and use this to create our next forest. Alright, so now it is time to set up the new pot for the cuttings. So I'm going to use, of course, a pot that has a drainage hole at the bottom. Use a screen to cover that drainage hole. And now what's actually cool is that I can just fill up this pot with bonsai soil, and I go straight into bonsai soil, and I don't even have to tie these trees down. So I can just fill the pot with the soil and then use the cuttings and just stick them into the soil and they will root. Now, generally speaking, a forest has 5 or more trees. So I have to also decide on how many trees I want to have in this forest. So I picked 7 cuttings from this pile of cuttings to create one forest. And so you always want to have uneven numbers. Like I said, the minimum amount is 5, and then the next one will be 7, and then 9, and so on and so on. So I chose 7, and I chose 7 of about the same thickness and the same height. It just makes it easier when I place them. They all have the same amount of chances to grow, so they don't have to compete with each other for sun and space right now, because I want all of them to thicken up, and then later on decide which one is going to be the main trunk, the second, third, fourth, and fifth, and so on. So I'm just going to go ahead and just place these cuttings. And so now what I like to do is actually I like to keep the leaves at the very bottom of the cutting. And so when I push it down into the soil, by having the bottom leaves will actually give me support. So take a look. I'm pushing them down into the soil all the way to the bottom, and then by leaving these leaves at the bottom, I get much more support. Now I know a lot of you like to remove these leaves, but I like to leave them just for the support. So now I'm just going to go ahead and randomly place these and give them somewhat of a good arrangement here. Alright, so now that the cuttings are placed, I'm going to take this and put it right out into full sun. But I am not going to water this just yet, because jades store all of the water in the leaves. So these cuttings are fully pumped with water, and if I were to go ahead and water it right away, I could run the risk of actually having these cuttings rot at the very base, where they still ooze out some of the water that they had stored inside the trunks. So put it right out into full sun, and then I'm just going to leave it like that for about a week or two until I see new growth emerge. Once I see new growth, I know it is time, they have rooted, and I can give it its very first watering. Finally, I thought it would be a good idea to show you a jade progression in 3 different stages. So we just created this one just right now, obviously, and then this will eventually turn into something like this. And then over time, this can turn into something like this. Now, of course, if you guys want to learn more about jades in detail, I'm going to leave the link below. I just did a really extensive video about dwarf jades where I talk about the care, the do's and the don'ts, and really dive deep into the species. So you can check that video out if you want to learn more about this wonderful species in detail. Now, if you have any questions about anything that I did in this video here today, you can do so and leave those in the comment section. And if this is your first time coming across one of our videos, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel so that you're always notified when a new video comes out. Now, if you're a subscriber already, thank you so much for your support. Welcome back, and I'll catch you guys all next time.